All right. Hey, everybody. Rob here for our BSPU call. Going to do something a little bit different today in that on a regular basis, I talk about how to use your book to generate leads, to generate speaking engagements, to generate media and PR. And really, all of those things ultimately come back to generating leads for the thing that you're trying to sell, generating business for you. What I don't spend a lot of time talking about is taking the opportunity which the lead gives you and bringing it all the way home to a new client, a sale, somebody that actually transacts business with you. And there are some trainings in the membership area that go into great detail on the consultative sales call. I would recommend you take a look at those trainings. But in the meantime, I want to give you a simple format that you can follow on any type of opportunity that you have. And I'm going to give you some examples of that because obviously this didn't come out of anywhere or out of nowhere. It came from a mastermind client that I spoke to over the last couple of days and some challenges that she's having. And I thought, this may be a challenge that others are having as well. So let me go ahead and dive in to it with you. As always, any questions that you have, feel free to go ahead and type them in the chat box. I'll get to them sometimes along the way, but usually at the end. And of course, the questions can be about anything. They don't have to be just about the content that we're going to be discussing as far as closing sales. Okay, so to begin, the most important skill really that you can master, and that if you do master, will take you to seven figures and beyond, is the skill of having a consultative, not slimy or pushy sales conversation, but a consultative conversation that takes somebody that has a need and has an interest in what you offer all the way to actually becoming a client and transacting business with you. And so if your business at this point is doing six figures and you want to go to seven figures and beyond, then it's going to be a matter of you getting better at both generating the leads, which the book is going to help you to do, but also taking those leads and turning those leads into sales and into clients. So I spent a lot of time discussing how to actually get the leads, and there's lots of ways to do it with your book, and your book will set you up as the authority. There's nothing like, every single day waking up, looking at my inbox and seeing buyer after buyer after buyer after buyer after buyer, literally every few minutes of my book, and knowing that these people are going to have my book in their hand, they're going to read it, and it's going to position me as the authority. However, I've still got to take them from that lead all the way to what we're really doing here at Bestseller Publishing, which is helping people to actually get their books done, marketed, published, promote, profit, etc. We are not just in the book selling business. We are in the helping people to get books selling business. So yesterday I had a call with a mastermind client who has really done some cool and exceptional things with her book. In fact, she's got more opportunities to speak in front of really large audiences than she's ever had before. And she told me yesterday it's all because of what she's doing with her book. And so I gave her a training, which we also have. I'm not going to go into depth on it because there's not enough time to in this call, but the training is in the membership area on the Success Pack close. And the Success Pack close is basically a close that you do from stage where you can't actually sell something from stage, but you do at least want to get as many leads as possible so that you can follow up with people and have these consultative sales calls. She did the Success Pack close, her very first time doing it, and I think she told me about half the room actually filled out her form, requested the Success Pack, which is the book and a one-on-one call, and gave information, answered the questionnaires, everything. So she had dozens of people that she was going to be sending the book to that wanted an actual call. Again, if you want to learn the specifics on the Success Pack close, that's in the membership area. And I've talked about that a number of times. Fairly simple, but really, really powerful. she started having these conversations. She also told me, by the way, Rob, she said, I was contacted because of my book and because I was part of an organization in the past. She's a doctor, and she helps doctors to deal with the stress of being a doctor, right? The stress of being a caregiver and working really, really late hours, and oftentimes abusing, their body and relationships to care for others. And of course, that leads to incredible internal stress. And I think statistically, doctors and medical professionals have the highest suicide rate. And so you have these serious challenges that she helps people in the medical profession to deal with. She's a part of an organization in the past. They reached out to her and said, hey, we're going to be coming to Hawaii, which is where she lives. And we'd love to have you speak. In a 10-minute conversation, she got an opportunity to speak in front of 800 doctors, physicians, medical professionals about her thing. So she's going to do, I told her, she said, what should I do? And I said, well, do the exact same thing you did before. Do the Success Pack close. And now you're going to have, maybe more people than you want to speak to. I mean, you might have 400 people that sign up to speak to you. But hey, we'd rather have too many than not enough, right? You can always make a choice about what you want to do with the leads that you get. The challenge was the calls that she has had up until this point went something like this. And when you don't have a real strategy of what to do on the call, then the calls can tend to go something like this. You have in your mind the thing that you really want to get them to. In her case, it's an event. She's doing a retreat, which is in the range of $2,500 or $3,000. It's the first step, if you will, in her funnel that takes people into coaching. And so all of these people have heard her speak. They know she's the best-selling author on the subject. They see her as an authority, and they know that they're going to have a call from her. But the call still needs to be structured, even though you have the framing right and everything else done properly. Here's how the calls went. They went about, like a call would go where there's no real agenda. There was some initial rapport. Nice to meet you at the event. Have you gotten a copy of the book? Perhaps you've already read some of the book or read all of the book. There were some niceties exchanged and some rapport exchanged. And then she went right into, well, here's what I have next. I have this event coming up, and wondering if you would be interested, and here's some details on it. And from the initial call she did, even though many of these people were extremely qualified, there was absolutely no takers. And I said, I get it, right? Because let's be honest, these people do not want to go to an event. They don't want to go to a retreat. They don't want to sign up for coaching. If you're trying to get in shape, you don't want to go to the gym. What you want, whatever problem it is that you have, you want a solution. You want a fix to that problem. Now, the fix, or at least the beginning of the fix, may be a live event. It may be a workshop or a retreat that you go to. It may be a coaching session. It may be getting to the gym. But nobody wants that thing. It's the old adage that Dan Kennedy, the godfather, at least of our generation of marketing, nobody wants to buy a drill. What they want is a hole, right? And the drill makes the hole. So in the same regard, what I told her she missed was getting people to the point where they made the connection between what their problem is, what their issue is, and the actual retreat, right? Because otherwise, why? They don't want to go. They're already busy. In her case, these people are leading incredibly busy lives. A lot of their stress is simply from the busyness of their life, and you want to add another thing to the busyness of their life. It sounds counterintuitive. It sounds like it would be a massive mistake for them. And so, not a surprise that there weren't any takers. So I'm going to give you two different ways to basically make the connection between whatever it is that you're selling and the initial lead, the initial telephone conversation, their pain, etc. I'm telling you, I'm going to give you two because one is a two-step process, because you may not have a scheduled call with these people. And if you don't have a scheduled call with these people and you're just you're calling them because they asked you to, they may only have 5 or 10 minutes. So if they only have 5 or 10 minutes, you still need to get some work done in that 5 or 10 minute session. However, you want to set it up for the next call that you're going to schedule. In some cases, people may have a scheduled conversation with you and they are ready to take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or even an hour with you, and then you can do all of this in 1 hour. Now, as I said before, in the membership area, there's a very deep dive into how to have an hour-long consultative sales conversation that takes people from interest all the way to becoming a client of yours. I'm not going to go over all of those details. It's an hour-plus training. I highly recommend you look at it, but here's the deal. What I'm going to share with you today is going to give you all of the basics so that you can have that conversation and begin having those conversations with people immediately. Okay? So 3-step, let's say it's a 2-step process, right? They only have 10 minutes on the phone with you. Nothing was set up. So the whole goal of this initial conversation with them is you're going to build some rapport. You're going to poke the pain a little bit, find out what their problem is, and then you're going to set up, give them some homework and set up an additional call. So the 3 steps are rapport, reality, and request. Rapport, reality, and request. Rapport is nothing more than at least taking a minute or 2 minutes and building a little bit of rapport. In my client's case, she's a doctor. She dealt with these things herself. She spoke publicly in front of this audience. All of those people met her, saw her, see her as an influencer and an authority. And the fact that she's a doctor and experienced all these things leads to a lot of rapport, but you still have to ask the questions, make nice, find out exactly why they were at that conference, where they're from. Maybe you went to the same medical school together, fill in the blank, find some common ground initially with that person and do it in just a minute or two. Remember, you only have 5 or 10 minutes on this call. What you're then going to go into is the next thing, which is reality. What I mean by reality is you want to begin probing what it is that they were looking for by either coming to that event or by requesting your book or by requesting a call with you, okay? Now, what they're looking for is not to buy your thing. Okay, they're not looking to buy something. What they're looking for is a solution to the problem that they have, which may lead to them buying something. So you need to ask at least one modestly deep question that leads to them telling you a little bit about what the problem is. So you may start with something like, so tell me, John, why did you request the book and respond after my message? What was it about my message? In this case, this is what she did. She spoke publicly. What was it about my message that really resonated with you? Now, obviously, the message was revolving completely around her superpower, what she does, how she helps medical professionals. And that gives that person that you're on the telephone with an opportunity to begin expressing what the problem is. In their case, they may say something like, well, I've been really stressed out. I've been a doctor for 15 years. My practice is going well, but because of that, I don't have the time that I would love to be with my family. I don't have the time that I would love to, pursue other interests, maybe sports or recreation. Maybe the stress levels have begun to affect this person. And so you're getting at least some of the surface information about their problem. You want to ask some questions to take the conversation a little bit further so you can learn more about it, but you don't want to go super deep because you don't have enough time to. But you at least need to begin figuring out, what is the pain here? What is the issue? What is it that I can potentially help and solve? Now, as you're doing that, as you're asking the questions and letting that person talk, that person is doing all the talking, you're asking the questions. You want to take some notes. You want to have your notebook out. You want to take some notes. You want to write down the words that they say. And here's what you need to be thinking of in the 2-step process. You need to be thinking, what is it in my book? What chapter, what pages, what stories in my book could resonate with this person based on what they just shared? So for example, if this person just shared that their schedule is crazy because their practice is going so well, and they haven't been able to, spend the amount of time that they want with their family. And maybe you ask a follow-up question like, how has that impacted your family? How has that impacted your relationship with your spouse, with your kids, et cetera? And so now you're hearing about these things in a very, very brief conversation. You begin thinking, okay, well, in chapter 6 of my book, I talk about, a client that I worked with that had the exact same situation, right? Or close enough to where there's some connection. So you're making a mental note as you're writing down the things that they're saying. They've spoken for 3 or 4 minutes. Remember, they have to go, right? Maybe they've spoken for 5, 6, 7. They have to go. Your whole goal is the next step, which is the request. You're going to request the next meeting. So here's what you do. After you get that information, you make the mental note of where that is in your book. You're going to say, well, John, thanks for your honesty. Thanks for sharing that. I completely get where you're coming from. As a medical professional, as a doctor myself, I've experienced these things. I've worked with a number of clients that in the past had experienced those and made tremendous breakthroughs. In fact, you have a copy of my book. I know you haven't begun reading it yet. Here, let me suggest this. Start in chapter 6, because in chapter 6, I share a very similar story about somebody that was experiencing some of the same things and what they did. Okay, now you've given them a direct assignment, something that they can do. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to say, look, let's get our calendars out right now. And let's go ahead and set up another call for, let's say 3 days from now. Why don't we try for Friday? Is Friday good for you? Yes, it is. Will you have time to read chapter 6 between now and Friday? Yes, you will. Fantastic. So you read that. We'll talk Friday at 10 a.m. and we'll have a little bit longer conversation about it. Does that sound good, John? Great. All right. So we're committed. I'll give you a call at that time. Boom. That's it. 5 to 10 minute conversation. You establish rapport in a minute or two. You get to the reality of what their problem is in 3, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then you take some mental notes, figure out what it is in your book that could help them. You request the next time and you give them some homework to actually read those things in your book. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If you have any questions, type them in. Now, what have you done? What you've done in that period of time is you've completely taken the focus off anything that you might be offering, anything that you might be selling, and you've put the focus on the real issue, which is whatever their problem is, whatever their pain is, right? Because that's what they're interested in solving. They're not interested in buying something. Now, if it relates to them buying something, then they're going to do it. But they're only going to do that if they can match those two things up. This is my pain. This is where the solution begins. I want the solution. Okay? So that's your first step and your 2-step. What are you going to do in the second step? You're simply going to do more of what I just shared with you. Okay? You're going to get right back on. You're going to reestablish rapport. You're going to ask them, did you have a chance to read chapter 6? What'd you think about it? Tell me, what did you get out of it? What made sense to you? And then you're going to go into a deeper conversation, which we call results reality roadblocks, which is a much deeper dive in the results they want to achieve. What do they want their medical practice to look like? What do they want their life to look like? And then the reality of where things are right now. Well, what does it look like right now? What are the pains? What are the challenges? What is the emotional toil that those pains and problems are taking? There is an emotional toil, right, that's being taken because they're not spending time with their kids, because their health is failing, because they're not spending time with their spouse, etc. So you need to connect all of these things and then lead that into, well, we eat those problems for lunch. The solution is your next step, boom, whatever that thing is that you're selling, your coaching program, your mastermind, or of course, in my mastermind client's case, the live event, okay? You can't just go from, you got my book, hope you enjoy it, interested in coming to, my 3-day workshop retreat. No, some may, right? Because they're just desperate and they've made the connection by themselves. But most will never make that connection unless you make it for them. You focus on what their pain is, you focus on the emotional toil of their pain, and then you help them to solve it by giving them the solution that worked for you and that works for your clients. Where it begins in her case is the live event, the workshop. Okay. Now I know I didn't go into step 2 all that great detail, because really all it is an extension of step 1. It's deeper, it's more. But again, I have, it's called Effortless High Ticket Sales. It's in the membership area. It's about an hour, hour and a half training. It goes into depth, all of these things. I would highly recommend you take a look at that, because it'll help you a ton. Okay. Now here's the thing. Don't get on a telephone conversation with someone that's interested unless you have this stuff mapped out and you know the process that you're going to take them through. It doesn't need to be complicated. Rapport, reality, request. Okay. Rapport, reality, request if it's a short conversation. But it doesn't make any sense for you to get on a conversation and just try to go for the jugular and take them from, hey, I requested your book. Great. Do you want to write me a really big check? No. Find out what their problems are. Make sure that you can solve their problems. Connect them with the solutions that you've already laid out in your book. Schedule the next call and then go deep into it. Okay? So there you go. I hope that is helpful to you. I'm going to go to the chat box now and see what questions you have for me and how I might be able to help. Dr. Craig, look at that. I got another medical professional on. Craig, how are you, my friend? Hi, Rob. I recently met a guy that does a morning radio show, co-host in a social setting, and I reached out to you in an email twice. Craig, I never got your email. I'm so sorry. Maybe it went to spam or something. And I'm requesting best practice for what I should send them to promote my book and do an interview with them. Okay, so a couple of things. One, if I understand what you're asking, you've already gotten the opportunity to do this morning show, right? So if you've already gotten the opportunity to do the morning show, there's nothing you need to do to promote your book other than bring your book, right? Make sure that you give whatever what we call a segment proposal, which is really the talking points. Make sure the talking points revolve around your book. And then they're going to offer, how can people reach you, Craig? How can people get more information? And you're going to either give them a link to your book or a link to your website where they can get the book or whatever. I was on KTLA recently, a month ago or so, and you can find it on the Facebook page, that episode. And, that's a great kind of pattern. The talking points are laid out. They knew what they were before because I sent them what the talking points were, and then they gave me an opportunity to promote my book at the end. So let me know if that doesn't answer your question. Paul says, this client who speaks to doctors, what's her name? Can we find her in the group? I might have an audience locally that would like to hear from her. I love that, Paul. It's Dr. Kim Kelly. She's fantastic. She's an anesthesiologist. She's obviously a client of Bestseller Publishing. We launched her book, went really well, and she's also a mastermind client where I help her do some additional things. So if there's something, Paul, that you can do, I would maybe recommend, say, why don't we do this? Why don't you either send me a private message and I can connect you two privately, or, that's probably the best way. Just send me a PM on Facebook and I'll connect you guys privately. That's great. Thank you, Paul, by the way. Thank you. You're super giving, man. I really appreciate that. You're always like the first to connect and the first to give. And, that's a superpower. I mean, that's really cool. So thank you. Dr. Craig, he requests I send info to him via email. Thank you. Okay, so the info that he wants your segment proposal. He wants your talking points. Dr. Craig says, as a practitioner still in private practice, this is absolutely correct. Awesome. So that's kind of a follow-up from what I talked about. You also said the ultimate pain point for doctors is insurance reimbursements. Every doctor's been hit extremely hard as a result. They need to pivot and find another way for bringing income into the practice. I totally agree with you. I have a couple of friends that are doctors, and this is a major pain point. That is not the pain point that Kim helps. She deals more with the emotional stuff and with the compassion issues and those kinds of things that doctors face. But you're right, that is a major pain point for doctors. And if somebody solves that, they can do pretty well for themselves. Clint says, Rob, what kind of longevity do you see for using your book to get leads? While I do believe a book carries legacy, as you discussed a couple of weeks ago, was just 5 years ago, that having a lead magnet, cheat sheet, checklist, et cetera, was all you needed. Now those don't work as well as they did. Consumers are savvy, and there are now thousands of people using their book in a free plus shipping offer. You say thousands, it's not thousands. I mean, it's because every time I see one, this doesn't discredit anything you said, Clint. What you're saying is accurate. But let me just say this: don't overestimate how many people are actually doing this. Very few are. Every time I see a decent free plus shipping funnel, I actually buy the stuff and record it so that I can have all this stuff documented as I'm building out a program for my clients. But I'm telling you, I have maybe 14 or 15 that I've built out. So there aren't that many people doing it, believe it or not, because it's so hard, right? You have to write the book, and then writing the book isn't done. It's a matter of building out the entire funnel. There's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm telling you, most people will never get past getting the book done. Anyway, let me finish reading what you said, and then let me answer the bigger question. Are we going to have to produce a short film eventually? LOL. All kidding aside, what do you see as the future of lead generation? So certainly lead generation will change. There's no question about it. And the free plus shipping thing is pretty powerful. But here's the cool thing about free plus shipping. It's really been around a long, long time. You may remember Columbia House back in the 70s. They built themselves to a $100 million company, in essence, doing a free plus shipping offer. Their offer, if you remember, was, and I don't know how old you are, so you may not remember. I remember because as a teenager, I took them up on their offer in the 70s. But it was basically get 12 cassettes, 12 8-tracks, 12 CDs for 1 penny. You had to put your payment information in. I, of course, put my parents' payment information in. But what they did is they locked you into contract where, there was a recurring charge and a recurring opportunity. You had to buy so many at full price. All that's really going to change, Clint, is the media, right? The medium that you get the message out to. It may not be a funnel the way we understand or look at funnels today, but number one, a book is always going to be massively valuable because they're so hard to do. It's too difficult. It's like gold, right? If gold were lying around all of our yards like rocks and dirt, then there would be no value to it. The value to gold is the fact that you got to dig in the earth. You have to mine it. You have to refine it. You have to, do something amazing with it. The same thing with diamonds. So a book is like a diamond. A book is like gold. There's just very, very few people that are ever actually going to get it done. Add to that the fact that there is always going to be a lead generation change that takes place. I still think there'll always be the opportunity to use lead magnets and cheat sheets and PDFs and that kind of thing, but they'll never ultimately work as well as something like a book to generate the best client for somebody. So I do think lead generation is going to change, but no, I don't think the book's going to go away. Now, here's what may change. Your book and the way you're marketing it may get old to the audience. And so you're going to have to make adjustments. It might mean writing another book. It might mean writing a second edition. It might mean creating a workbook, right? It might mean positioning the offer differently. So no question that it will work, but will that offer get old and have to be adjusted? Craig says he wants me to send the proposal. Where do I find this proposal? What proposal do you mean, Craig? If you're talking about like how to do a segment proposal, so we have some tons of examples of that in the members area. If you don't have like your login information to that, I can do me a favor and, obviously I didn't get your emails and I am pretty fanatical about email. Maybe it went to spam, but do me a favor and just PM me or put a post in the mastermind, Facebook mastermind area, and I'll make sure it gets taken care of and you get examples of what these segment proposals look like. Gary says, Rob, your book talks about writing like you speak. Someone recently told me my writing sounds like I am at a networking event and not an office setting. Okay. FYI, my ideal clients are in a B2B environment. Should I be changing my writing style for B2B versus B2C? Isn't it always people to people? I do think it's always people to people, Gary. But the written word is different than the spoken word. So yes, you should write as you speak, but when you speak, and I speak in run-on sentences. We don't speak in bullet points. We don't speak often in an organized fashion. That's why, as a part of the hybrid ghostwriting process, it's, yes, you speak it, and you speak it in a format, right? Story, open loop, main points, etc., as I lay out. But that then needs to be rewritten, because the written word is different than the spoken word. Short, punchy sentences instead of long run-on sentences, etc. So, if you're doing this yourself, the writing part of it, then, you need to make sure that you're rewriting it and editing it so that it's more punchy and good intros and conclusions to paragraphs, and right, not just, the rambling run-on sentences that we can do when we speak. Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, it's always people to people. Clint says, thank you. I'm 42, by the way. And yes, I remember those mailers for Columbia House very well from when I was a young boy. I mean, they built a $100 million company on the back of that penny offer. And that was in the 70s. And so in some ways, all we're doing is a version of that at $7.95. And that version it still works, and it will work again. It will continue to work, but the mediums will change. And of course, your offer may have to change and be adjusted as well. Craig says, segment proposal will do. Thank you so much. Good. So you'll post in the group, and then I'll respond and answer there. Awesome. Great questions. I hope this was helpful. I know it was kind of an overview of that conversation, but I didn't want to take for granted that, just because you're a professional in your thing, and maybe you're pivoting and starting a consulting practice, or maybe you're selling something new, you need to understand your book is going to generate leads for you. Your book's going to get you speaking engagements and media and PR opportunities like Craig just shared. But you have to convert those. You have to change those from just the opportunity into an actual sale. And this could be somebody that really, really wants and needs your thing. But if you don't make the consultative connection between their pain and your solution, then your solution isn't going to be that interesting to them. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for your trust in BSP, and love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week.